could count on every person in the world to know how to play, it would be tag. I'll leave you all to argue about exactly what it's called, but this game is so built into our brains, and even the brains of animals, that pretty much everyone ever has played it at some point. Somehow for most of history, tag has gone untouched, while pretty much every other possible activity has been turned into a sport or an art form. Until now. No, this is not a particularly aggressive game of kiss chase, but professional tag as a sport. Teams of players compete in 1v1 matches lasting 20 seconds. If you manage to catch the evader, or you get away, you stay on. The winning team is the one with the most successful evasions. As sports go, it doesn't get much more easy to understand than this, and if it looks kind of familiar, well, you're not wrong. The creators of Chase Tag unwittingly created a game that was destined to be utterly dominated by parkour athletes. Parkour, the sport that is literally about moving quickly over and around stuff, had been training Chase Tag players since the early 2000s. It might be hard to imagine now, but in the early days of Chase Tag there was a genuine question mark over who would be best suited to this new sport. Would it be professional athletes from a similar sport, NFL players, tennis, sumo? But that question was quickly answered by parkour. And then answered again. Then again. And again. So these fledgling parkour Chase Tag team members have been battling it out over 4 tournaments on the Chase Tag court since 2016. Wait, the same court? Every single chase in every game of every tournament takes place on exactly the same court. The creators of Chase Tag believe they've created the perfect court, or as they call it, the quad.
We built the perfect quad?
But in reality, there are very few advantages to engaging with most of the obstacles, and when you do, they're all pretty much the same. Sure, you can run around them, but that gets boring really fast. All in all, the quad looks like it's been designed by people who don't have much idea of the sheer variety of ways that people can move, and the massive array of skills on show from athletes across the world. It just encourages running around on the floor. Aside from leaving very little room for innovation, the court being the same means we're missing out on one other potentially fascinating element: the ability to adapt. Players from around the world have wildly different strengths and weaknesses, but when the court stays the same, the only teams who can win are those who are particularly good at the stuff you need to do to move around on that court, so the same teams win and the league becomes static. Those could be one of the reasons why the first 3 Chase Tag tournaments were won by the same team. From a spectator point of view, with an identical court, you would struggle to tell one tournament apart from another, and the games play out in very similar ways. For Chase Tag to succeed in the long run, it must become a sport that people can enjoy watching, even people with no experience of moving like this. The problem is that once the players decode the obstacles, you see the same solutions appearing again and again, and who wins just comes down to fitness. Look at climbing. If the route was always the same, then eventually you'd start seeing exactly the same solutions appearing, and it would get boring. In fact, it nearly did. In the sport of speed climbing, players will attempt to climb a set route in the fastest possible time. The handholds on speed climbing walls are all laid out in identical positions. Every wall is the same, so climbers can optimize their technique. Speed climbing is an incredible feat, but the detail you have to go into to make it properly interesting to watch is staggering.
Minor slips here from Amanda Brownstein, just not exactly getting where she wanted her feet right away, just having to take those tiny pauses. Both women had a nice start. Mia was able to keep her momentum and just efficiently place her feet the entire time, saving tenths of a second, which is what matters in speed climbing.
Now don't get me wrong, it is interesting to watch, but you need that commentary to really understand the importance of what's going on. What about court sports like tennis? They're not boring. Well, like anything, that's a matter of opinion. The team games have the extra dynamic of people working together and are far more complex, with different players performing different roles. But 1v1, like tennis? Tennis is broadcast with incredibly rich and detailed analysis of the gameplay. Replays, chat, close-ups, and even Hawkeye help us to understand the importance of tiny details. Can you imagine watching a 3-hour tennis match from a single angle without a replay? I mean, I can, I just don't want to. Above all else, people watch sports because sports are stories about people trying to do difficult things, and sometimes succeeding, and sometimes failing. And the suspense of not knowing which it's going to be is captivating. As spectators, we put ourselves into the shoes of those players and imagine what they feel. We notice small things about them and decide if we like them, and then watch a brand new narrative unfold starring these people. The coverage of these sports is our portal into this narrative. So do the same with chase tag as they do with tennis and you're sorted, right? The duration of a game of chase tag is 20 seconds. Because evading players stay on, a huge part of who wins the game comes down to fitness and the rate at which evading players can recover after being chased. So while chase tag does already include commentary and sometimes features 5 or 10 seconds of analysis in between chases, they have to be careful. Take too long and allow too much recovery time, and the best players would just never get caught. As someone from a parkour background and with a passion for creating real-world games, I've been excited about chase tag from the early days. I actually coached the second place team in the first tournament and the winning team in the second. I really like chase tag and I want to see it succeed. And in many ways it has been succeeding because it's certainly got a healthy slice of attention so far. But my fear is that as it stands, once you've seen it, you've seen it. Having seemingly boxed themselves into a corner when it comes to creating a game that everyday people can enjoy watching, what, if anything, can we do to fix the chase tag format? Certain things need to stay the same, such as the game length, and we don't want to add gimmicks or complication to a game that everyone already understands. So what's the one thing holding chase tag back from being a truly watchable sport? Location. With the fast turnover of chase tag games, we don't have time to explain the small details, so we need to make the details bigger. If the location changes in every tournament, the players are forced to adapt and change their tactics in big ways. Some teams and players will gain or lose advantages depending on whether the arena favours them, which promotes a higher level of churn in the league and keeps the battle for the win alive and kicking. So when I say change the location, do I mean build new obstacles and swap them in? I mean, maybe, but also no. There's an idea in parkour that your environment builds you, which is to say that the kind of obstacles that you're surrounded by are probably the ones you're going to get good at overcoming, which probably also applies to life. That's another video. By making the game arenas real places in the world, we create an extremely high level of diversity of obstacles, and that's not going to suit everyone, forcing players to adapt in ways that anyone can see. That doesn't mean you can't add extra obstacles to these natural arenas, but there's already so much variation in real places, even down to what the ground is made of or temperature. I feel like the other thing sorely missing from chase tag is a feeling of community. Imagine seeing a chase tag tournament and then getting to travel to the location of the tournament to play some games with your friends or with the locals. As it stands, we're completely missing out on this angle, as games happen on a bespoke court behind closed doors. And unlike mainstream sports, most people will just never have access. I think chase tag has enormous potential, and the scope for multiplayer or other game modes is massive when the time is right. But it still feels like the sport is locked away in a little box, when it should be just a little bit more like the original game we all know and love.